Hello there, welcome to Academic Village, and I'm Abbas Isiaka, and I'm your host here in the village. This video is coming after I've received a lot of requests to do an explainer on how fellowships in the UK really work and how you can put forward the best of applications. As an early career researcher or as a PhD student thinking about the next steps in their academic journey. So please, if this is something you've been looking forward to as well, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. So, and I want to start with the very hard truth, and which is that most people don't fill fellowship applications or don't get rejected with their fellowship applications because their research idea is weak. In most cases, most applications are always very strong and well curated applications, but they fail because for a number of reasons, and one of that is because we've usually, when I started too, we seem to misunderstand what fellowships are actually for. And if you think a fellowship is simply a pot of money to do a piece of research or to do a good project in your mind, I think this video might save you years of frustration in helping you get better at how you prepare your application for any fellowship applications. And between 2024 and 2025, when I completed my PhD, I made 5 distinct fellowship applications alongside other job applications I've prepared. But I only got one of these fellowships, and which is the Leverhulme Trust Early Career Fellowship. But the rejections before that 1 year that I got were brutal. They were very difficult to deal with in terms of how, they tell you, there's this feeling that you're not good enough in most cases when you receive those rejections. But the idea is actually that the idea is strong. Your project is a strong fit, but then it's not competitive enough. Sometimes I struggle to understand what does that mean, what makes it more competitive. And over time, I've been able to curate some understanding of how do you define competitiveness when you're submitting your fellowship application. So today, I will explain how fellowships really work and what funders are paying for and what they are not paying for, and why excellent researchers still get rejected again and again. So now this video is for you if you are a final year PhD student, which I was a year ago, and thinking of what are the next steps and how do I want to move to say get a permanent academic position, or is there a transitional plan, which most times you don't get to get people tell you about this plan until you get into the process and start figuring out what to do next. And again, I was really looking forward to apply for the global talent visa, so I needed something really great so that I can be automatically considered for an endorsement as an exceptional promise or exceptional talent. So fellowship was really something that was high on my agenda as a final year PhD student then. And also, if you are a postdoc, probably you've been employed as a senior research associate or a research associate in the last couple of years, and you're thinking of independence or trying to be able to forge your own research identity or research project, then this video is for you. And also, probably you've been an early career researcher, worked on a number of projects, you have a good years of experience with you, but you've not really been able to transition into that capacity of being an independent researcher, then and you're still wondering, am I ready yet? Is this the right step for me? I hope this video is useful for you as well. So why is the fellowship important for you or your career? For me, I've seen the fellowship as a signal, and it tells the universities or any future employer about your capacity to successfully lead and deliver a project. So if you get one, it means you don't really have to do much in convincing whoever is going to hire you in the next few years that yes, you are fundable, you're investable. And it tells a lot about you and your research. It tells universities that this person is investable, this person has been vetted by external experts or by their peers, and there is a proven capacity of executing significant scholarly work independently. I think that's really important. And also, it shows that this person, that you have a leadership capacity, that you are able to establish and direct your own research agenda, attract funding, and also mentor the next generation of scholars. So these are the immediate signals that every university, every employer would see when they realize that you have a fellowship on your CV. And also, having a fellowship shows the institution that, okay, you are less of a risk when hired, because there is you've been able to meet up with, say, deadlines or report, or you've demonstrated productivity in a way, and then there is less uncertainty about if you are able to make contribution to the department or not. So these decisions have been, made for the employer, for whoever is going to employ you, and that is why it is in most cases a career changing, a career transforming position. And if you take a Leverhulme early career fellowship, for instance, this is exactly what a fellowship is meant to do, to give you that emblem, that picture of, okay, future ready, employment ready sort of positioning. And that's why when you see many fellowships, they want to see, okay, what does this mean for your career, and how is it going to transform you as an individual, as a researcher. So now that we understand what a fellowship is, let's also clear up some misconceptions about what a fellowship is not. Number one, a fellowship is not a reward for finishing your PhD. It's not, oh, you've done that, long, important, hard work for the last 3-4 years, and then it's the price of getting to the finish line. That's not that. Many people have gone into their careers without a fellowship, so it's not a reward for finishing a PhD. And also, it is not a grant that you win because your proposal is great or polished. It's just, it's rather a way of demonstrating, possibility of you being a good researcher, or being investable, or having a track record at the same time. Also, many people apply for fellowship because they want a safety net to cushion them. I mean, because the job market is bad, it's woeful, as we seen in currently in the UK now. And this is not what the fellowship is meant to do. Essentially, it's much more than being a safety net. It's even more about laying that path for you to be able to get a better academic position. So this is what essentially a fellowship is not. It's not a safety net in its sense, and also it's not about your. So let's look at what fellowships actually fund. In and of itself, or in and of themselves, fellowships are not like research grants. Inherently are not research grants. And that's because they are much more focused on the individual. They fund people and not projects. So if you are preparing to apply for any fellowship, think about you and the people that will be working on that project, not essentially the project. The project is of course important, but then the ultimate goal of every funder is to be able to fund and invest in a researcher that can lead a particular piece of investigation, and then they then translate that capacity to something bigger and something much more rewarding in the future. So these are the things that at the core of every fellowship. So it's about funding people, not projects. And also, and that's why it is really important that every funding application takes into consideration your trajectory as a researcher. What is the direction of travel? What are the future potentialities that this person, while doing this project, are able to deliver? So trajectory, number one. And number two is the independence. How is this going to allow you, especially as an early career researcher who has completed a PhD or about to complete their PhD, how is this going to translate into you being an independent researcher? So the essence of that independence is going to come through this fellowship. and that's that intellectual autonomy that you're expected to emerge and develop. And also the last one is how risk taking. I mean, are you a risk worthy of taking, or is your project a risk worthy of taking? So every funding, every fellowship is about risk taking, because it's more like, okay, we're trying to explore new ideas, we're trying to expand or extend the boundaries of knowledge, and that's the risk, intellectual risk, that is expected of you, how ambitious you are or your project is. So definitely these are the three things that every funder is really interested in. Now, let me break down these three elements into one after the other, and let's look at trajectory, for instance. So trajectory is more about clearly articulating a direction of travel. Every assessor or panel of reviewer are not really interested in what you did in your PhD, but they are much more interested in where are you going, why this fellowship is the next logical step that comes after, and then after this fellowship, what comes after it. So they want to see that as well. And the panels often ask this question: okay, if we fund this individual, if we fund this person, where would they be in the next 5 to 10 years? So you want to see this clearly. So when you bring your proposal or your plan for the fellowship, the last part of the fellowship should indicate the next line of action. Okay, what are you planning to do next? Okay, are you planning to apply for a different grant, a much more bigger project, or a much bigger fellowship, or you're taking on or something different? So these are the things you want to take into consideration when you're applying. Becoming an independent researcher, and this is not just a second part of your PhD or an extension of your PhD, sort of, or a replication of your PhD. And also, is it possible for your supervisor to do this without you? And even the training fellowships, I mean, fellowships are sort of training in nature. I also want to see emerging independence, not just, oh, you are overly or heavily relying on your supervisor. And it should mark an end to that academic apprenticeship that you see in a PhD. So this is why it is really important for you to think about your authorship patterns. How are you writing? Are you, even if you're co-authoring with your supervisor, you want to make sure that you also develop your own authentic voice as a scholar, and then you're building that autonomy. So that independence has to really come through when you are making your application, or when you're writing your story or your narrative as a researcher. Another thing is it's risk taking, and which is, even though this idea is somewhat counterintuitive, because why would anyone want to put their money on something that is not say viable in a way, or it's not guaranteed that there will be some certain established reward on it. It's which is what you expect in a research grant. But for a fellowship, it's more about they are not really interested in the safest project, if you like. They want a managed intellectual risk. They want to see that you are trying to take some bold, big steps with your thinking, with your methodology, with your ideas, and also you have a contingency plan to manage this. You have the right support in place to help you evolve in this process. So this is how they think about the risk that you're taking in your research, and is this person capable of doing something new? And then are you able to undo the uncertainty around doing an entirely new or different approach, or taking a different approach in your research? So this is what every panel is looking at and looking for. They are not interested in a perfectly safe project. They don't want everything that is all clean and polished. They want something that looks messy but still clear in the way you're communicating it, and then also ambitious. Now, but in spite of all of this that I've mentioned, why do strong proposals still fail? And that is because oftentimes panels decide about the project even before reading the methods. They really keen about the person instead, because it's a fellowship, so they are investing in the person, and they're interested in the person's trajectory. And then that's why you see they look at your CV, your publication pattern, the institutional environment, how well are you embedded, or the ecosystem where your research is going to be based, and the mentors you're going to be using or supporting your work. So these are the things that every panelist is interested in. And then they ask, is this person fundable now, or are they fundable later? Are you at that point where, so there was an application I made last year, and it was a very big project, a sort of advanced fellowship, if you like. But they said it's possible for me to apply because I've just completed my PhD. But then when I got the response, the feedback from the panel spoke to me like, okay, this person is fundable, but they are not fundable now. So that was the signal I got from the recommendations or from the report on my application. So it's a matter of, even though you are fundable, but this is not the right time. Maybe you've not reached that maturity or that ripeness to be fundable at that level. So that's essentially what it was. And in most cases, you have to treat rejections on three levels. And this is what I've also learned over the years, that rejections could mean, number one, three things, especially when it comes to fellowship. Is number one, not yet. You are not yet there to be funded on this scheme, or even to get this fellowship at this point. Probably you've not gotten to that level where you should be, being able to manage this kind of this scope of research. Also, maybe not at this level of your career. So that's another thing you also want to think. Maybe this is not the right level for you. Probably if you are, say, early career and you're applying for a mid-career fellowship or an advanced fellowship, then they would think, okay, this is not the level you should be applying for. And also the scheme as well, which connects to the scheme as well. You want to be sure that your research fits the priority of the funder. So you want to avoid a mismatch between what your funder prioritize and what your research is trying to achieve. So these are the things you need to sort of understand, and this is how why many applications get rejected and all of that. So timing is really, really important, and fellowship is an important element. So when you're reading the guidance for application, you want to read the eligibility really clearly. What post PhD years are they interested in? Do they take into consideration your break or a career break or career holiday or whatever? And then are you at that right frame, at that right post level, and the right scheme for you? So these are the things you need to also take into consideration, in addition to developing a strong proposal. Now, let's look at the people and the place of a fellowship. Getting a fellowship is a measure of fit, like the measure of the people and the place of your fellowship. It's a measure of where does your research fit within the ecosystem of your discipline, of the field you're working, and also why is this host institution the best place for you to do this fellowship, or to have this fellowship, or to do this piece of research. So I mean, every institution have institutional grants that they've got. So it's a matter of, is this place the best place for you to launch your career, or is it a good launch pad, so to say, now for you to arrive and then develop your capacity, your network, your collaborations around this research identity? So is that university the best place, or that college, or whatever the place is? And do they really support early career researchers? Are they fellowship friendly? Because fellowship is not for a very long time. It has an expiry date in a way, and would you have the opportunity to grow as a scholar if you are at this institution? And this is why you need to emphasize, when you're writing your support letters, when your host institution writes a support letter for you, they must be able to state clearly what supports they have in place for you and how they are going to support you to grow. So in this case, you need to understand why the institution, and that's why most fellowships funders would request that you submit your application through an institution. They want you to have an immediate an initial conversation with the institution that will be the host, even though if you are an independent researcher, they still want you to have a connection to a particular institution that can host you and provide you the necessary support. Because starting from uh, a fresh and or from scratch as a researcher, building your own capacity or building your own lab might be really expensive for any funder. So they want to be able to lean on the resources that are already on ground, the network, the infrastructure, the facilities available, and that's why every funder would say, okay, who is your host institution and what support are they making? Are they contributing to you being hosted or supported on this project? So, and also, you need to know who is going to write your institutional support letter. Is it going to be the research office or the school or the department where your research is going to be based? And this person, you have to make sure that they really invested in your project. They like your project. That's simple. And they're interested and invested in your development as a scholar. So, what level of interest do they have in you and your work? So, these are the things you want to be able to demonstrate or show early on when you are preparing your application, and get the right persons in to help you develop that. And also, if your fellowship requires a mentor, if they require, okay, you need to get a mentor within that school or that department, then you ask yourself, who is this mentor to you? Is this person you met at a conference or you've published together? Were they your external examiner or your intern examiner? Depending on what capacity have you met them, away from, and in most cases, most funders will say, "Oh, don't use your supervisor as your mentor for a fellowship, for a postdoctoral fellowship." So they want someone who is, far a new identity, someone different from who you've worked with before, and they want to see that trajectory of you developing and being able to develop your own capacity. And also, this mentor, they are very important. They must be well established as a scholar, and they have the resources to support you intellectually and materially. And when I say materially, I mean the time. How accessible are they? Um, are they enthusiastic about your work? Can they advocate for you and your project? Are they able to write you a recommendation letter anytime, any day? Are they proud to be? So these are the questions you need to ask yourself when you're thinking about who your mentor should be. And this is why fit matters. I see fellowship in most cases as a game of fit. So it's not about the prestige of the institution in most cases. Think about, is this institution the right place for me? If you are at that point where you're thinking, should I go for fit? If you have a place where you have everything I've listed here now, but you're thinking, oh, it's not really a prestigious institution, I'm going to advise you, from my experience, go for fit, because the funder will see really well that yes, you're well established, you have that network that can support you and develop your your career career trajectory, your career trajectory. So this is um, essentially what I would say, and how you want to proceed if you are interested in a fellowship of this kind. Now that I've been able to explain what a fellowship is, what it is not, and why a funder want to invest in you, why they're interested in you, not essentially your project. And I want you also, before you apply for any fellowship, I want you to ask yourself the following four questions. And the first one is, what stage of independence are you really at the moment beyond your own doctoral research? Like, how would you define or describe your identity as a scholar? And beyond your doctoral research, again, what intellectual identity do you have? What emerging scholarly voice are you developing, that you think, okay, fellowship will allow you to be able to achieve that maximally? So this is something you also want to think about. So what is your intellectual identity beyond your PhD? How has that evolved? Okay, then in my work, I used to, work on. For my thesis, I worked on disability inclusion in higher education. Even though that is still very much my identity as a scholar. But then I see myself looking at equity and access in higher education more broadly, or my current role as a widening participation research associate has also sort of added a layer of interest to my work. So I'm then developing this identity of, okay, I'm a widening participation researcher, and I'm interested in making universities work for every student. So in that bit, I am evolving an identity that is quite different from what I did for my PhD. So this is something you also want to get cleared when you're starting to prepare or make moves for your applications. Another thing is, why does the funder make sense to you? Why is this funder a fit? So you're not thinking only about how you are a fit for the funder or how you're a fit for the fellowship. You're also thinking about how is the funder a fit for you. What does the funder bring? What does it give to you? What do they add specifically in terms of your, say, projection or your plan for the future? Why is Leverhulme a good fellowship for you? Why is the British Academy a good fellowship for you? Why is Wellcome Trust a good fellowship for you? So these are the questions you want to ask yourself before deciding which. And again, you also want to check that you yourself ask yourself, are you fundable? Can you fund this research? Are you someone that someone can invest in? So these are very, I know, very uncomfortable questions, but they are really important and necessary if you want to be able to prepare and save your time, save yourself the agony or the time of preparing an application and getting rejected. So if you're able to clear yourself these questions, then I think you are in the right direction. So in the next videos in this series of fellowship applications, I'm going to be breaking down I'm going to look at specific funders, say Leverhulme, British Academy, the UKRI, Wellcome Trust, and all of those. So and we'll see how you can apply for this fellowship, what's their next deadlines are. And if you think this video has clarified something for you that you've been struggling with, I really want to say that you should please subscribe to Academic Village, like and share, and I'm going to see you on the next episode. Thank you.